How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Leprechaun in the Hood. This is from 2000 and is the 5th movie in the Leprechaun franchise. The 5 is quite often left out of the title, but in some cases you might see it listed as Leprechaun 5: in the Hood. This is one that gets played on cable quite a bit, so, sometimes you may see it with the 5 there, but it's not official. Anyway, this is directed by Rob Spera and stars, once again, Warwick Davis as the titular Leprechaun. We get a big role from Ice-T in this movie, and our main people are A.T. Montgomery, Rashaan, Nall, and Red Grant. And it seems like the formula for a lot of the Leprechaun sequels has been take the Leprechaun and put him in a new location. Leprechaun 3, he was in Vegas. Leprechaun 4, obviously in space. And now he's going to the Hood. And I feel like, when they list in the subtitle where he is, it gets more attention. I feel that if Leprechaun 3 was called Leprechaun 3 in Vegas, then a lot more people would talk about it. A lot more people would talk, but a lot more people would also make fun of it. Yeah, a lot of times, especially with Part 4 when he was in space, people are like, what's going on with the Leprechaun franchise? Isn't it silly that he's going here or there? And a lot of people do make fun of this movie, and I'm not gonna lie, there's some definite faults here. It's not a perfect film. This is direct-to-video, and it does look it. The budget is definitely dropped down, cheaper sets, not as many great kills, and the Leprechaun's magic is toned down a little bit here. Not completely gone like it'd be in Part 6, essentially, but it is definitely a bit less. And yeah, a lot of this stuff, like the humor, definitely doesn't 100% work, and the plot can be a little meandery. But all that being said, yeah, like this definitely does have faults. All that being said, though, it's not near as bad as a lot of people give it credit for. Actually, this movie does have a really big redeeming thing with it, and that's the characters. The 3 lead characters in this are super charismatic, and you really get behind them, and you really do follow them. And overall, this movie may have some of the best leads in the entire Leprechaun series. So it really does work better than people give it credit for. There are some definite, really good, memorable moments in this. In this movie, I always remember where they're talking amongst themselves and they go, it was something like, that's the plan, got it? And the other guy, yeah, I got it, do you got it? And they go down the chain, and of course, the last person there is the Leprechaun, and then they see him, and then they react and run away. That's always a classic Leprechaun gag. And there are a few really cool, iconic series moments in here. So yeah, it's direct-to-video. It's not the best. There are definitely some problems here. But overall, good leads and better than it gets credit for. So yeah, I do think it's probably worth a watch, even though there are parts that don't work. But that being said, let's talk a little bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and take a few moments to pause, break down, and do a little bit of analysis of this movie. So I won't go all the way to the end, or at least I won't describe the end in great detail, but I do want to analyze. We open up a beginning scene where 2 guys break into an underground room. There are various treasures there, but also a leprechaun statue frozen with the medallion around his neck. I think the last time they used this motif was Part 3. I do believe the necklace itself is a different prop, so I'm not 100% sure what makes them freeze, how many necklaces are there, Is it just the red stone in the middle? In that case, is that all you need? I don't know the rules, but it's another leprechaun frozen via medallion. And when they decide to take the treasure, they're going to, of course, take the shiny medallion from the leprechaun's neck. And note to self, if you ever freeze a leprechaun, don't just put the medallion around his neck, put a little sign that says, "Do not remove, it is cursed," because people are going to see that and just take it. Anyway, the leprechaun comes to life, and of course is going to kill the guy that's not Ice-T's character, and Ice-T will fight off the leprechaun with a bit of luck and manage to get the amulet back on the leprechaun. So he's survived, and he's also found the leprechaun's magic flute. More on that in a bit. But I do want to say, judging from the clothing style in this opening scene, it really does look like this opening scene is set in the 70s. And if this opening scene is set in the 70s, Leprechaun 1 through 3 is clearly not set in the 60s, and this leprechaun has been frozen from 1970 something till 2000, 20 to 30 years. So I would say that that's probably proof that we are dealing with multiple different leprechauns, or at least the leprechaun in 5 is a different one. But anyway, we jump to the present where we meet our 3 main characters. They're musicians trying to get their careers off the ground, and our 3 characters, first off, we have Postmaster P. He's the leader of the group, and he chose this name because he's delivering positivity. The P is for positivity. You also get Stray Bullet. He's the tougher one, and when there's a tough decision to make, he'll be more likely to dive headlong into it. Hey, we gotta do this, let's just go out and do it. And then, of course, you get Butch. And Butch is kind of the nerdier, more jokey one, but I do like there's a bit of his twist with his character where he actually does know a fair bit of science and engineering. So, he's goofy, but he's not just a complete, silly character. He actually is quite capable when it comes to his field. So I do like that twist on the comedic character there. But anyway, they're working, and this big setup that Butch has will accidentally explode, and we get the 3 of them flying comedically towards the camera. You're in for a goofy movie when you get something like that. But with their equipment exploded, they need new equipment, and that's not going to be cheap. So they decide to go to Ice-T and try to sell some of their songs to get money to buy more equipment. And he says it's not bad, but it's not great. And he recommends that they change up the messaging. Postmaster P wants to deliver positivity, and Ice-T says you need to be gangster, you need to be tough, you need to be cold, and get rid of the positive message, which Postmaster P refuses to do. And even though Stray kind of says, hey, wait, let's talk about it, Ice-T says, you said no once, that's the only chance you get out of here. So, really cold and, not giving them a second chance. So they talk later and they decide to rob Ice-T because of all the cool stuff they've seen in his office. And they say, who is he to decide who gets out of here and who doesn't? Who made him king? Why does he get to choose? So they go into the office and they steal his gold, and they also find that magical flute, and of course take the medallion off the leprechaun's neck, thus freeing him and unleashing him into the world again. But that magic flute, it has power, and that's why Ice-T in this movie got to where he was. He blows into it and finds that it kind of mesmerizes those around them, and when he blows into it before a performance, everybody will like the song. Now, at first I was kind of wondering, is it just that they're mesmerized? Is that why they like the music? Or does it actually make the music better too? Later on, they established that the sound can't be recorded, and since Ice-T makes so much money selling, physical copies of music, we have to assume that it actually does make the music better too. So this is their key to get out of here. They can use this whistle to win a contest, go to Las Vegas, go back to part 3, I guess, and become music superstars. It's their chance to finally get big and make it out of here. But of course, we actually have 2 antagonists this time around. They're on the run from both the Leprechaun and Ice-T, and they have to figure out how to escape both of them. So it is kind of cool, a double enemy movie, and both the enemies play out pretty well. But a few things with this movie. The plot structure isn't always the best, and there are a few weird moments. A clear example is the Leprechaun has zombie fly girls in this movie. A woman that he's mesmerized into doing his bidding, and they have these glowing green eyes. Okay, that's pretty cool. They have a good aesthetic behind them. They hide the eyes with sunglasses. They have these gold dresses. It is a little out of left field, and I don't know how he mesmerizes people without his flute, but they're an interesting idea. But they show up before they're introduced, and you're like, who's that woman in the background? What's going on with that shot? And then later they introduce the zombie fly girl, so I'm like, okay, this movie was edited out of order, So there is that. There's a few little things, like when they break into the office initially, they accidentally shoot Ice-T, and they think they've killed him for a little while. But the audience knows really quickly, and so do they, that Ice-T is still alive. And, don't get me wrong, he's a good villain, it's good to see him in the movie, but it is kind of weird that they introduce this I think I've killed someone plot and quite quickly take it back. It's like, okay, if you're gonna take it back so quick, why introduce it? There's another weird scene where the Leprechaun goes to see one of their blind grandmothers, and the grandmother, thinking he's a friend because she's blind, starts to give him a meal, and the Leprechaun's like, oh boy, some food. And it turns out, I think it's a dream or something, which, yeah, I think they found a good gag but couldn't figure out where to put it in the movie, so it's just a dream. So there are things like that. But one of the big things is it feels kind of aimless, and I think that's because it gets kind of sequency. There's places they go to do things that you can tell it's because they thought of a few gags. Wouldn't it be funny if we went here and did a few gags and then went over here and did a few gags? And you can tell that they're going to these places for the sake of the joke and not the sake of a plot. So it feels kind of like we're going to go over here, tell some jokes, the Leprechaun's going to show up, we'll shoot at him, and someone will die, but we'll get out and go to the next scene. So it does feel a little repetitive, but, whatever. But it does get to be, where do we got an idea for a gag? Let's go there for 5 minutes, then move on. So it's like, we're gonna go to the blind grandma. We're gonna go hide in a church. We're gonna go see Chow to get party supplies. I guess we need those. Wouldn't the venue provide them? And then, okay, let's hide with our transgender friend. And I guess I do have to say, there are also parts in this movie that don't hold up to modern scrutiny, let's just say. And yeah, that is a thing here. I could totally see this movie being edited down in the future. I could totally see them chopping out a few chunks of this movie. But anyway, I do want to say, like I said, I won't spoil the end, but I do like the ending parts of this movie, it gets a little darker and more serious with a few scenes of legitimately, good tension and stuff, wanting to know, like, oh man, does the Leprechaun really have him here? And there are moments where it gets dark, and also I do really like the ending and where it leaves Postmaster P's character. I thought it was a really interesting place, and a lot of people just brush it off like, okay, yeah, that's how a horror movie ends. But I think there really is more behind it, and it really is trying to say something. So I do like the ending, but I think a good test of whether you'll like this movie or not is the absolute ending. Not a spoiler, but it does end with the Leprechaun doing a rap. And I think if you like the rap, you'll like the movie, and if you don't, you won't. Personally, I think the rap is super cheesy, and that does make it kind of fun. It's like, hey, look, there's the Leprechaun, he's doing a rap song. I mean, that's funny, but a lot of people don't think it's funny, and a lot of people are like absolutely repulsed by this song. So yeah, if you don't like the song, that is a little bit of an indicator. But anyway, overall, why I do think the movie looks cheap, and I definitely agree that it doesn't 100% work, and it doesn't always stick the landing. I do want to say, this isn't a terrible movie. It's definitely not the worst in the series. It has its problems, but it's made up for by really good charismatic leads, the different setting, a good bit of effort. It's definitely not the best thing in the world, but not as bad as people make it out to be. And I'd still recommend it to fans of the franchise. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Leprechaun playlist. I do want to say, though, that's Leprechauns in general and not just the Warwick Davis series. I also have Red Clover and Full Moon's Unlucky Charms in there. If you want to see me talk about more Leprechaun movies, a playlist should pop up right here. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Leprechaun playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.